Teyana look like Cardi B. Teyana look like Cardi B.
Judy, get out of here.
I really don't care what happens to her at all. I don't care. Like, everybody they tiptoe around with this social media. But what y'all don't get is that it be real consequence for y'all little flexes, y'all quick flexes for $300 that you need. It be consequence.
The courtroom was so silent that the faint ticking of the clock on the wall seemed deafening. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the atmosphere was thick enough to feel like you were sitting inside the most gripping scene of a film. Every breath, every shuffle of papers, every cough carried weight. At the plaintiff's table, Teyana sat next to her lawyer, her hands clasped together so tightly her knuckles had turned pale. She stared down at the table, struggling to keep her composure as if any sudden movement might shatter her restraint. On the other side of the room sat Iman, rigid in his chair with his legal team huddled beside him. His jaw was clenched, his posture leaning forward, his eyes fixed coldly on the witness stand. And then the moment that no one expected arrived. Their daughter, small in stature but holding herself with bravery that seemed too heavy for a child, looked straight ahead and said the words that cracked the silence in two. "Daddy lied to me." Her words weren't loud, nor were they filled with anger. Instead, they were soft, steady, but sharp enough to slice through the heavy air like a blade. For an instant, time itself seemed to freeze. Even the judge, who had been calmly adjusting his glasses, stopped mid-motion and looked over them in shock. A low murmur rolled through the gallery, people whispering as if they couldn't quite believe what they had just heard. Teyana's face drained of color as her mouth parted in disbelief. These were not rehearsed lines. This wasn't something she had prepared her daughter to say. It was raw, unfiltered truth spilling out in front of strangers who would now carry it beyond these walls. Across the room, Iman didn't look at her. His eyes dropped to the table in front of him, his fingers tapping in a steady rhythm as though he were clinging to control, holding back an eruption brewing inside. The judge quickly called for order, raising his voice to silence the murmurs. But it was already too late. The damage was done. The truth, or at least the little girl's truth, was now part of the official court record. For those watching this custody case unfold, this wasn't just another dramatic moment. It was the boiling point of years of tension, a love story gone sour, a family shattered in full view of the public. Teyana Taylor and Iman Shumpert had not been just any couple. They were once celebrated as one of the most admired pairings in the entertainment world. Young, beautiful, stylish, and overflowing with talent, they seemed like a perfect fit. Their public appearances glowed with affection. Social media adored them. Their interviews painted a picture of playfulness, laughter, and deep connection. They walked red carpets hand in hand, posting snapshots of their life together that millions envied. But beneath the polished Instagram posts and glossy magazine spreads, cracks were beginning to form. And when the marriage finally collapsed, those cracks split wide open. What remained wasn't just bitterness between two former lovers, it was confusion and heartbreak for their daughter, who now sat at the center of this legal battlefield. Those close to the family have said that this custody fight has been anything but simple. It wasn't only about custody schedules or financial settlements. It wasn't even solely about parental rights. It was about trust that had fractured not only between Teyana and Iman, but between a father and his child. In the months leading up to the hearing, rumors had circulated about promises Iman had allegedly made to his daughter. Promises of vacations, promises of where she would go to school, promises of who she would live with. And according to Teyana's side, many of those promises never came true. Worse still, they believed those promises were never genuine to begin with, that they were carefully designed to sway the child's emotions in his favor. When their daughter walked into the courtroom on the day of her testimony, her head was held high, but anyone could see the heaviness in her steps. She didn't appear to be there to pick sides. At least, that's what she thought. She believed she was there to tell her truth, to explain what she remembered, what she had been told, and how it made her feel. But when the questions turned to the things her father had said about her mother, her composure faltered. Her voice cracked as she explained in the most childlike but piercingly honest way possible that her father had told her something, a story she later learned wasn't true. She admitted that when she discovered the truth, she didn't know how to process it. She felt sad, angry, confused, and betrayed. She struggled to describe it, so instead she uttered the only words she could manage. "Daddy lied to me." The impact on Ayman was immediate. His shoulders stiffened as though the air had been sucked out of him. He whispered sharply to his attorney, who leapt to his feet with an objection, claiming the question was leading the child. But the judge dismissed it, allowing her to continue. Teyana's lawyer, sensing how delicate this was, kept his voice soft, guiding her without pressing too hard. The girl wiped at her eyes, her small hand trembling, and looked down at the paper cup of water on the stand, refusing to make eye contact with either parent. She spoke quietly, describing the hurt she felt when she realized she had been misled. Teyana sat motionless, her eyes glossy but her face carefully composed. She knew that in a courtroom, visible emotion could be read as manipulation, but inside, she was breaking apart. Friends have said she has been consumed with worry about the toll this battle is taking on her daughter, often expressing in private how painful it is for children to be caught between two versions of reality, two parents' truths clashing until the child no longer knows what to believe. And now, hearing her daughter say those words in open court, she wondered if any healing was even possible. Ayman, for his part, has always denied manipulating his daughter's perception of her mother. In interviews, he has consistently painted himself as a loving and devoted father who only wanted fairness in the custody agreement. He claimed his fight was not about control but about his right to remain fully present in his children's lives. Yet in that moment, with 4 words echoing in the courtroom, his entire defense seemed to buckle. Even without solid evidence of intent, the optics were devastating. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The court reporter's fingers clicked rapidly, documenting every syllable. And in the back row, someone muttered just loudly enough to be heard, "That's it. He's finished." The judge called for a brief recess. Immediately, Teyana rushed to her daughter, wrapping her arms tightly around her and guiding her gently out of the courtroom. She didn't say anything aloud, at least not where anyone could hear. Ayman remained seated, leaning back with his eyes fixed on the ceiling as though trying to detach from reality. His lawyer whispered in his ear, but he gave no reply. Eventually, he rose with his team and walked out of the courtroom without making eye contact with anyone outside the courthouse. The moment exploded into headlines. Reporters who had been shut out of the proceedings scrambled to gather details from those who had been inside. And soon enough, the phrase "Daddy lied to me" was plastered across blogs, social media posts, and breaking news banners. Some sided with Teyana immediately, saying this was proof of betrayal. Others accused her of coaching her daughter, claiming children are easily influenced. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok buzzed with debates, with old clips of interviews dug up and dissected for hidden meanings. What made the moment so powerful was that it hadn't come from a lawyer or a carefully crafted press statement. It came from a child. Her voice was unpolished, unfiltered, and for many, undeniably real. Whether she was speaking purely from her own heart or repeating something she had been told, it resonated because people know deep down that when a child feels betrayed by a parent, it leaves scars that don't heal easily. When court resumed, the energy was palpably different. Every sentence carried weight, every pause lingered. The judge didn't directly reference her earlier words, but his questions became sharper. He pressed both parents for clarity on living arrangements, communication, and whether promises had been broken. Ayman answered with deliberate caution, carefully choosing each phrase. But the testimony had already shifted the balance. Teyana's lawyers leaned into it gently, emphasizing trust as the cornerstone of co-parenting. Behind the scenes, insiders said Ayman's camp was furious. They believed the testimony had been orchestrated, that Teyana's team had strategically set them up. Teyana's side denied it, insisting they had no idea what their daughter would say, only that she wanted to speak her truth. Regardless of the intentions, the effect was undeniable. The judge now had a first-hand account from the very child at the heart of the fight, and it painted her father in a deeply troubling light. By the day's end, no ruling had been issued. The custody battle was far from resolved, but in the court of public opinion, the battle lines had already been drawn. To some, Teyana was a mother fighting to protect her daughter's emotional well-being. To others, Ayman was a father unfairly undermined by an embittered ex. And in the center of this storm was a little girl who had just spoken words whose weight she might not fully comprehend, words that would follow her family long after the case concluded.